It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome back to another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. Alan, not just you and I today. It is not the OG Afternoon Drive. Stephen Thompson joining the show, as we were kind of talking about before we started the record button. A very accomplished 24-year-old Stephen Thompson. Stephen, how we doing, pal?
I'm doing great. I cannot complain. I've been at the beach for the past week, and beach working for a living. I'll tell you that much.
Let's say, are the birds in the background? I'm assuming that's coming from Stephen, not Alan.
Yes, yeah. I would assume so. I assume those are some seagulls that you might be hearing.
The seagulls, we love it. If they make an appearance on the podcast, we wouldn't be upset about that either. But anyways, before we dive into anything, as always, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Alan, we talked a lot about is the 2025 Steelers starting quarterback currently on the roster yesterday. But we didn't spend much time talking about one of those options, Justin Fields, currently on the roster, and really diving into him, what people are seeing or not seeing as we gear up for training camp. There's been a lot of narratives put out there about Justin Fields that if you're not necessarily, if you haven't actually had eyes on Justin Fields so far, and you're kind of just relying on this information, your mind might be getting skewed one way or another on what Justin Fields has actually looked like so far.
Yeah, I feel like there's just been a lot out there said about Justin Fields over the last couple of weeks. Like, honestly, all since the end of OTAs and minicamp, like no one was saying anything while we were watching him every day. Seems like it's all like randomly trickled out over the last couple of weeks, and I don't really understand it. You know, I watched Justin Fields every day at practice for a month. I saw exactly what I expected to see. An incredibly fast guy with absolutely elite athleticism, a laser rocket arm, occasionally does not put it where he's supposed to. And then, you know, the big problems with Justin Fields are all TBD. Like, you know, it's all the processing and the turnovers, which you're not going to see in an OTA setting. I thought he looked as I expected, or honestly, maybe even a little bit better. I feel like I was just personally sort of taken aback by his athleticism up close in person. It's pretty incredible, but I don't know. Since that came out, there's been this trickle of stuff about him being allegedly disengaged with practices. There was something yesterday that was written about him being down in his interview sessions with the media. There's been questions about his accuracy. Look, I mean, we don't need to talk about what he did in OTAs to have questions about Justin Fields' accuracy, but it's not like it was shocking or you know, anything I didn't expect. I don't know. Steven, what was your take on what you saw from Justin Fields this spring compared to what you were expecting to see from Justin Fields? Because I personally thought, like, if anything, I got more than I was really expecting.
Yeah, I think you were pretty spot on. Like, you got just about everything you were expecting out of Justin Fields. I think you hit on the athleticism. I don't think we saw everything that we're going to see out of his athleticism. Like, I think that stuff shows up more on game days when he's able to be creative, when he's actually playing against a live defense, when he's able to use his power a little bit too. Like, that's the thing. This guy is huge. He's strong. I think I have a little bit more concerns, I think, than you might about the accuracy. I saw a guy who, even when
that's a problem.
And even when he put the ball on the money, I felt like there were a couple times where he didn't have the right touch on it. You know, he's throwing a laser to a guy who's running an underneath route that's 3 yards in front of him, and the guy drops it, and you know, it looks like a drop from a distance, but once you see that ball zipping at 100 miles an hour out of Justin Fields' arm, you're like, okay, well, that's a little bit on Fields. That's on him. But I think, you know, I completely agree with the idea that until Justin Fields actually plays some live action, like, I can't really accurately judge him. And then that's, you know, on top of the whole, I don't buy the whole disgruntled or disengaged thing at all. I don't think that's really true. And I think this is a guy who, you know, you can read it as disengaged or, you know, unenthusiastic. I think this is a guy who understands the situation he is in, understands that he is a little bit of an underdog in whatever you think an underdog just in general. I mean, this is someone who had such a high pedigree throughout his entire football life, and now he's a backup, and now he's being underrated. Now these people asking, is he even capable of being a starter in the NFL anymore? And so I think that's someone who is committed to keeping his head down a little bit, working, learning from the guy who's in front of him, who's a veteran, who's been there and done that. I don't see anything that I didn't expect. I didn't see anything that raised concerns for me. This is just Justin Fields. This is just the Justin Fields you should have expected when he was traded however many months ago that was.
Yeah, I think every person on the planet, except for like maybe my guy Joe Klimchak, who does the in-inning entertainment for the Pirates at PNC Park, everyone short of Joe looks disinterested and disengaged next to Russell Wilson, right? Yeah. Because, he's just this like incredible Energizer bunny of positivity. Also, I think we should understand, based on what's been reported at both of his previous stops, that all of that is a show and totally put on and fake anyway. So, like, I don't know that we need to be giving credit for that and taking away from Justin Fields for just going about his day and doing his job without any extra. So, and like being down in his interviews, like, what do you think the questions are from people like me and you? What does the audience think those interactions are like when you're talking about a first-round draft pick who flames out after 3 years, gets traded for a 6th rounder to go be the backup to a 35-year-old in a different city? Like, do people not understand that we are not like, I'm not like, hey, Justin, nice to meet you. Really glad to see you. Welcome to Pittsburgh. Have you been to Permanis? I saw you on the roller coaster at Kennywood. I'm like, no, why did you fail as a first-round draft pick? That's like the first question. Like, these are not going to be happy interactions. Do people not understand the process there?
I don't think they do. First thing first, you mentioned Joe Klimchak, Center Township's finest, graduated from the same building that I graduated from, eventually becoming Central Valley. But no, I don't think that is taken into consideration in this. And I'll be honest, like, largely, don't get me wrong, there are certainly times where you can look at a guy's body language and tell like something's up. But largely, like, I really have an issue when we try to evaluate things that like are like something like that, like inaccuracy. Sure, you can look and see that definitively happening, but when you start trying to pick apart somebody's body language, saying they seem disinterested, or like their body language during interviews, maybe even answers obviously could dictate the way that you are describing the way that he's going about this, but largely like things that you just can't tangibly evaluate, I really have an issue when we're starting to have the discussions about that. So like I didn't really take issue with the accuracy concerns part of that, but again, when you're talking about somebody being disinterested or the way that they're going about media sessions, that's when I'm like, okay, we're not even talking about football right now, and this conversation should be about football right now.
And this just sounds way too much like the conversations we were having about Kenny Pickett at the end of last year and into the offseason even, which were, in my opinion, completely exhausting. I didn't really buy a whole lot of them, but it's just not a conversation that I think I'm interested in having, especially for a guy who, again, Alan, how many guys in that locker room are super excited to talk to you when they're in those big scrums like that? Like you mentioned, Russell Wilson, maybe Calvin Austin. There are not many guys who you walk up to them in a locker room setting, you point 19 cameras in their face, and then they're all bubbly and they're all excited to talk to you. It's not common, and especially like you said, for the kind of questions that a guy like Justin Fields is getting.
Yeah, it's one thing if it's the first round draft pick. Troy Fautanu's he's not getting any. It's all softballs in that interview, right? He hasn't done anything wrong yet. There's nothing to be critical of.
He hasn't had a chance to. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Like and I'll say this: I don't remember Justin Fields turning down an interview. That's way less than I can say for a lot of guys on the team this spring. Like, certainly if I was gonna if Justin Fields is down in his media interviews, what is Najee Harris in his media interviews? MIA. That's what he is, because he refused to speak. So like, are we worried about Najee Harris all of a sudden because he doesn't want to talk to us, or do we just not care because it's him? I don't know. Like, why is this a thing that even matters?
Yeah, and I think it's a very media thing to be worried about, like how someone looks in interviews. Like this is something that only we might like.
I do think it's a quarterback thing. Like I get that a little bit, but I mean, come on, I don't know. I think it's
a lot of people in the comments, Alan, are going to be like, "Good, he should be giving the middle finger actually during these scrums to the media. Actually, that's what he should be doing."
Yeah, sure. I don't care.
I'm just saying, how people in the comments feel about traditional media. They have this one size fits all picture of what the Pittsburgh media is.
I had no problems dealing with Justin. He answered every question I asked him nicely. What I felt like was truthfully. You never really know, especially when you're just getting to know someone. But yeah, man, I don't know. It feels like there's a lot of weird things being said about him right now that I don't understand. And the other thing is, like, I'm telling you this, whatever people think about Justin Fields, the Steelers fans think about Justin Fields right now, when he gets on the practice field at St. Vincent and there's 10,000 people with their cell phones taking videos of the ridiculous things that he does and putting 40-second clips all over social media, because Justin Fields is like incredible in 40-second clips, right? It's only when you take him in aggregate that like things don't always add up, right? The 40-second clips of Justin Fields are as good as the 40-second clips of any quarterback to ever live. So we are going to go from whatever this weird conversation is right now. 1 month from now, they're going to be at training camp, and Justin Fields will be a god. Like, he will be an actual deity that has graced the Steelers with his presence. And how dare Mike Tomlin not only start him at quarterback, but kickoff returner and defensive back too, because he's just that good. You can see it every day at training camp. We're going straight to there from here. I guarantee it.
Is he the actual social media quarterback?
Oh, now we're talking. Now we're really talking. Yeah, you ever seen the tweet about it's like Justin Herbert in hypothetical situations? It's a picture of Tom Brady. Yeah, that's going to be it's Justin Fields, and then you could put like Mike Vick or whoever in there, whoever you want, Lamar Jackson, whoever you want.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. This conversation over the last couple days, really, I guess going back to what, like late last week, has kind of, for whatever reason.
And it's weird that it all came out now when, like, he's probably in like Tahiti or Spain. Isn't he in Spain? I think I saw on Instagram he's in Spain.
Yeah, this is very this is a July conversation. This is stuff that, or a June conversation.
Oh, sorry, Morocco. He's in Morocco. He was riding a camel in Morocco.
I'm trying to think of. I'm also.
Did anyone break down his body language on the camel? That's the content I want. Okay, where is the breakdown of his body language on the camel?
I keep trying to think of, like, I was in a couple of those scrums. I'm trying to think of what answers could Justin Fields have possibly given that people are interpreting as like disengaged. If anything, his first press conference, he was like, yeah, I was brought in to be the backup, but that's not how I view myself. That's not how I'm going to approach this job. If anything, it was the opposite of disengaged. I cannot believe that was the conclusion that anyone could draw from that.
Well, I'm sure it wasn't the conclusion of anyone that was there. It seems to be the conclusion of people that are watching clips on YouTube. So I don't know.
From either of you, any more on this particular subject?
No, I don't think so.
No, I think we're good.
Okay. Alan, we talked a lot about yesterday. We had two questions that kind of tied in together regarding George Pickens. Somebody said, when you look at him and look at the rest of the receivers, how does he not get 8+ targets? Somebody else asked, are they kind of unintentionally, also intentionally not acquiring somebody else, trying to push George to be the unquestioned leader within that wide receiver room? Well, we got another question that kind of goes into the double teaming factor of that. The Facts Mob says the answer to double Pickens defense is high efficiency running the ball, right? There's no way you can double Pickens if you constantly need that 8th defender in the box to stop the run. If they want to survive Pickens being doubled out of the game, we have to be a top 5 rushing offense, especially if the QB is part of the attack. It'd be extremely difficult to double GP if teams have to use that 8th defender to stop the run.
Yes and no. I mean, look, you can certainly have the 8 guys in the box and double cover George Pickens, right? Like, it's not that hard. Let's say you're in 12 personnel. You've got 2 guys in the box covering the tight ends. You got 1 corner on GP. You got a safety shaded to GP, and you got one-on-one coverage on the other side, pure man. Like, is that what a lot of teams regularly do? Like, no, but it's not hard either. And if you want to go 3 wide receivers, it starts to get a little bit more difficult. It just means that your other guy in the box now needs to be a nickel corner and not like a safety or a linebacker, but you can still do it. I don't think here's how the running game can't really keep people from double teaming George Pickens. I think the running game can make the double teams a little bit irrelevant, because when you really can't double team is like 3rd and 3. Okay, where you really can't double team is play action. And so, like, quarterback like read options and RPOs are hard to double team. So like, I think they can help in those areas, but like, you're going to get into 3rd and 10, you're going to get down 2 scores, and you're going to be in throw first situations. And in all of those, there's going to be 2 people on George Pickens.
Yeah, I think the running game is one part of this, but I also think the other part of this is just like Pat Freiermuth has to be a guy. He has to be a threat. He has to be someone that you have to consider adding another secondary defender to when he's running around. Like he has to be a matchup problem for a linebacker. He has to be someone that you can't just leave a linebacker on and feel good about it. I don't think we've talked enough about, we kind of generally on the speed or whatever, we haven't talked about what Pat Freiermuth needs to do to open up the rest of this passing offense, because look, we can talk all we want about Van Jefferson. We can talk all we want about Quez Watkins. Neither of those guys, I think, have even just comparatively, like what those guys are at their best. I don't think that's equal to what Pat Freiermuth is at his best. So, and the reality is that Pat Freiermuth isn't like a mean blocker or anything like that. If Pat Freiermuth is really going to make an impact on this offense in 2024, he's got to be a really dangerous red zone threat. He's got to be a guy who can take some pressure off of George Pickens, a safety valve for, Russell Wilson, whoever's starting at quarterback. Like, I think Pat Freiermuth is the key that's going to open this all up for the rest of this offense, for George Pickens especially. He's got to be a bigger threat than he's been over the past year, 2 years, in order for this offense to really hum.
Steven, I mean, we've talked about this a lot, but obviously not with you on here. I just want to get your take on kind of the entire wide receiver situation. I mean, do you still think that this team is going to add somebody by the end of training camp? Do you think that they need to add somebody? Has what Calvin Austin did, up to this point through OTAs, very impressive by all accounts, maybe put an ease to their mind in terms of going to get to somebody?
Yeah, so this is a nuanced. I don't know. I try to be nuanced with it. I'm much more optimistic on the Steelers wide receivers than I was before we went into OTAs. I still don't think this is like an elite group or anything. It's not like I don't think there's a bona fide number 2 sticking out to me right now. Van Jefferson had a few nice practices. Calvin Austin, like you said, looked really good. Quez Watkins, I thought, started pretty strong in OTAs and then really tailed off towards the end. And I was like, oh, okay, that's more like Quez Watkins, I think. But I would be really stunned at the same time if they add anyone of significance, just partially because I don't know who else is out there. Like, you're going to have to, I think that's the thing. It's been all like Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. There's no one like, there's no real like wide receiver 2 out there that anyone's talking about is available in a trade. You look at the free agent market, I don't think there's anyone left that I think, Zay Jones, DJ Chark, all those guys in that same kind of category getting snatched up. I'm not sure there's a situation that makes sense out there for them to get Brandon Ayuk could be awesome, but I don't think that's going to happen either. I just really think that it just doesn't seem feasible for them at this point. So I think I think what you see right now is what you're going to get from the Steelers, at least personnel wise. And I think at this point, you've got to count on some big improvements from those big guys. It's hard for me to say at this point whether or not I'm really confident in Van Jefferson or Quez Watkins or Calvin Austin even to be one of those guys. I thought it was going to be Roman Wilson after he got drafted. I thought he was going to be that number 2 option, but I haven't seen anything from him in practices that indicates he's ready for that role just yet. I think he's a good player, just not quite there yet. I'm concerned about it, but concerned, I mean, really are not any other options. Who they have is who they have, and I don't see an obvious upgrade out there for them to make at this point.
Cortland Sutton would have been perfect. I don't know what Denver's doing. I mean, they should want to trade him as well with where they're at in terms of their rebuild. I'm still working on that. I'm DMing him every day saying, hey, they called you ugly. They said something about your mom, all these things to try to get the ball rolling. I mean, it's not for a lack of trying, right? Like Omar Khan is trying to turn stones right now, but it's like that clip in Family Guy where Peter's trying to pick up the frog with the box lid and just keeps dropping it. Those stones aren't turning. There's nothing there. He can't turn that stone if nobody else is willing to make the offer, at least for his price. Like if he was willing to give up multiple first-round picks, pay $30 million to Brandon Ayuk, a trade would have been done. Obviously,
I don't even know. I don't even know that. Like, I think right now there is no thing that Omar could say that would get John Lynch to say yes. I don't because unless it somehow involves pieces that are going to help them win a Super Bowl this year.
Yeah.
And the Steelers don't have any of those.
I think if on draft day they offered 2 first-round picks.
Okay, draft day, because then those players.
Yeah, I'm not talking right. I'm saying all.
I'm saying right now. I don't think right now there's anything Omar could say that could make, like, there was a headline the other day, like, I guess Doug Whaley said, like, yeah, get it done. I'm like, there is nothing that they could do that would make the 49ers want to trade him right now. Nothing. Why would they want to? They're like, what, number 2 favorite to win the Super Bowl? I think they are the favorite to win the Super Bowl. Like, why?
I believe they are.
Why are they trading him? They're not gonna.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you make a good point about the return. Like, it's not just, draft picks don't make sense at this point. You can't, like, anyone equivalent in value to what Brandon Ayuk would be. The Steelers need those players too. The Steelers also have designs of being pretty good this year too. So it's like, you're giving up assets like that for one, like, and that's the other thing. Like, are the Steelers ready to invest $30 million in Brandon Ayuk? I think that's the only reason that
they wouldn't be calling if they weren't, right? Like, you have to think, like, there's no point in, like, making sort of seemingly obvious overtures if you're not. Like, right now, the most likely way that the Steelers get Brandon Ayuk is that the 49ers offensive line suffers a horrific golf cart accident at training camp, and they can trade him James Daniels and Dan Moore in one fell swoop. And, you want Nate Herbig too? Here you go. Take them all, and then our first round pick, and we'll take Brandon Ayuk. Like, that is the most likely. It's not happening.
Yeah, it's not happening.
There's just the only reason it keeps getting brought up is because there's nobody else. Also, I think it's pretty clear right now that even if the 49ers are going to trade Brandon Ayuk, the Steelers are probably not the most likely destination.
Who would be the most likely destination then?
Well, certainly seems like he wants to play for Washington. And also, just like, look, the Steelers are not a Super Bowl contender with Brandon Ayuk. There's some team out there that will be. Buffalo. I don't know why that would.
Buffalo, none of that. What did you say to me?
I say we mentioned Buffalo before as a team that absolutely should have. First off, like, say San Fran was looking at it like, we don't want him to be in the NFC. Checks that box. Washington wouldn't check that box. Obviously, a contender at the top of the AFC that feels like they just can't get over the hurdle that is the Kansas City Chiefs. Brandon Ayuk does a great way to go towards that.
Baltimore?
So, okay, no.
Yeah,
but I mean,
Detroit has some receivers, but, like, Dallas could use him. I don't know if San Francisco would trade him there. Like, yeah.
Well, Dallas has to pay CD now. Probably 30 plus.
Yeah, more than 30. I mean, he might get more than.
I mean, if you trade for Brandon Ayuk, you don't have to pay CD.
I would still rather have.
I guess so.
Everything else being equal, like, I'd still rather have CD than.
Yeah, but you could have them both this year and then pay one of them going forward, I guess, would be the idea.
Yeah.
I mean, you have
your defense gives up 50 points to the Packers again in the playoffs and you lose. So.
Again, going back to kind of what we said, where, like, people are kind of lumping these all together. Brandon Ayuk's not on a tag; he's on a 5th-year option. They could still be tagged next year. Like, how ugly is that going to get? But
I don't know. But
just saying, it's within the realm possibility.
Heck yeah. In fact, they should. Why wouldn't
I want it to happen just to see how.
So we can talk about the Steelers trying to trade for Brandon Ayuk until, like, July of 2025. Yeah.
We'll be talking about we'll have the 2-year anniversary of this show.
We got a whole 13 months ahead of us of Brandon Ayuk conversation.
Absolutely. I don't know. I mean, we kind of got away from the point there about the running game opening up the pass game and people not being able to double George Pickens. I mean, it's an interesting thought for sure. Obviously, the more efficient that the Steelers could be on the ground, you're keeping more people in the box. It kind of opens things up for the pass game as a whole. But specifically with George Pickens, is that going to be the case? Like, you could say,
it's going to make the offense better. But, like, how many more targets does that mean for George if you're running that much to set all that up?
I would argue it's better for whoever that second option is in the pass game than it is for George.
Yeah, for sure. Like Steven said, it's better for Freiermuth than anyone else.
Yeah, I would agree there. Anything else on that subject?
Almost it.
I'm good on Ayuk talk for like a month.
For like the rest of my life.
Well, not necessarily Ayuk, but like. Oh, Steven, so do you feel like they're just going to roll with this wide receiver group then? Like,
yeah, I do.
Not a top flight receiver, but literally anybody else added.
I mean, you never know like who they're going to throw in at the end of the 90-man roster during training camp, but I don't think it's going to be anyone of consequence. I would be shocked if they signed anyone before training camp that ends up making the 53-man roster.
Could you even see, we've talked about like Treylon Burks maybe looking for a fresh start, one of the guys towards the bottom of the Houston Texans depth chart with how many receivers they have?
I mean, I think if the Titans were going to move on from Burks, I think they already would have, because especially after landed Boyd. I think they're pretty set on keeping Burks in the mix. I think they have at least a little bit of faith that he can turn into something for them this year.
That's something, at least very early, is a gunner on special teams. So I'm very curious as to how he and his agent will take to that as a former first round pick that was part of a big trade and supposed to just one for one seemingly replicate AJ Brown in the minds of a lot of Titans fans, which that has not gone so well.
It hasn't. But I mean, I think it's also. I think it's one of those things where if it was going to happen, it probably would have already. Because how long ago did they sign Tyler Boyd? Like that was.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been probably about a month.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
I think it has. So I mean, they had plenty of time to make that move, and they still haven't. He might be a very valuable gunner. I don't know. Let's not put a ceiling on this.
They drafted, and they didn't draft a wide receiver highly either. So like, it's not like they're waiting to see, like, I think that's one where like that there could be someone that comes available if somebody's like third round pick gets the training camp and they're like, oh my God, this guy's a star. We got to play him. Oh, we don't need this guy anymore. Like I can see that happening, but they're not one of those teams.
So, all right, not necessarily with Ayuk. I know you guys said you're done with Ayuk, but like the 49ers room as a whole, it just leaves me still with a lot of questions because you got Deebo Samuel there. They spent a first round pick on Ricky Pearsall, and then they brought back Jennings, which was a guy that I was like, okay, maybe if they're not going to move Ayuk or Deebo, maybe Jennings is the guy in that room to target. They also drafted Jacob Cowing, a wide receiver out of Arizona. Like that room is plentiful too. Like how is that going to play out?
I think they're going to be one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl. That's
roll with everybody.
Seems like that's how it's going to play out to me. I think it'll be a really good football team.
So, why spend a first round pick on Ricky Pearsall?
Because you're not keeping one of Ayuk or Samuel beyond this season.
But if they're Super Bowl favorites, go ahead.
I mean, they just didn't have many other like pressing needs. Like, where were the holes in the San Francisco 49ers? Like offensive line, maybe. Like, I don't even think that like
in the interior of the line. I mean, I know that like guard isn't necessarily like a super valuable pick there, but like a lot of their fan base was saying they should have taken Jackson Powers Johnson and played him at guard because of their interior situation. Like, I'm just thinking if the goal is literally to win the Super Bowl this year, as it clearly should be, and you're just talking about this year, why are you looking down like at the future? Drafting Ricky Pearsall to replace either Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk when that's not happening in 2024, and you could upgrade somewhere else in 2024.
I don't think they have a lot of places they need an upgrade. I mean, I think they're a pretty good football team. I think I'd rather have Ricky Pearsall than a guard, personally.
Okay,
I'm kind of in the same boat too.
All right. Steven, we normally take the last couple minutes of every episode that we have a guest on to kind of talk about their journey or what they're doing, whatever. We know with you, it's a little bit different situation. You're in a transition right now. Stay on the lookout for that announcement coming within the next week from Steven on his social media handles. But just kind of going through your journey up to this point right now, just give us the people a little bit of a background, how you got to the point where you are right now.
Yeah, to be honest, I had no idea that this would be the path that I was on. I remember the moment my sophomore year at Pitt, I was standing in line at that Starbucks on Forbes Avenue, and I kind of just realized, oh, maybe I do want to be a sports journalist. Maybe this is what I want to do. It took, signing up for the student newspaper at Pitt my freshman year, thinking I have no friends. I need something to do. I have a lot of free time as well. And so I, took a couple stories there. Eventually I offered to write a game story about some, nobody non-conference game that Pitt was playing. It was men's basketball. No one else wanted to do it. It was a Tuesday night or something in November. And I said, I'll do it. Why not? And once I did, I was just kind of captivated by not just, it was Jeff Capel's first year there. They'd gotten a bunch of new recruits. It was kind of the beginning of when I was still kind of getting really into basketball, just as a sport. and I was hooked. The energy in the stadium, I came from a really small high school, so to see a big time college sports program like that in action for the first time in my life was pretty unbelievable. And so I just kept going back. I volunteered to, I think they played Central Arkansas the first game I played. I was like, okay, I'll take the Northern Alabama game too. I'll take Youngstown State. I'll take, whoever the hell they're playing next. And then eventually, I covered, they played North Carolina. And then I'm watching Roy Williams sit right in front of me and asking him questions. And I think that's when it started to become a thing for me. And then, 4 years later, I'm sitting and I'm watching them play Duke. I'm asking Coach K questions. I have all these great experiences. I'm sharing a press box with some guys who are now my heroes and my mentors. Allen was obviously there, a guy I ended up working for and learned a bunch from, but Craig Meyer and Chris Carter and a bunch of other people visiting journalists as well who came through. And I think the fact that I would stick around in the press box after games, that I would listen to what they were talking about, try to have conversations with them. Eventually I started when I started to realize this was something that I wanted to do long term, I would say, do I need to go to Psych 101? Do I need to go to that lecture today? Or should I go to this basketball press conference at 3:30 or whatever? It turned out to be the right move. And so, I did that for all 4 years. I really kind of made it a career before it was a career. And then I was lucky enough to get the one job offer I got coming out of college was from our friend Noah Strackbine, who introduced me to so many things. Not only did he let me cover college sports, but he brought me into the Steelers locker room, brought me into Steelers games, let me travel with him to games. And it was incredibly valuable experience because, college is so different from the professional stuff. Like they serve you who you're talking to. They bring you out one guy or another, and that's all you get to talk to for the day. But you're able to explore so much more in an open locker room setting. You're able to explore so much in a professional sports setting like that. And at every point, I think I was just very eager to do more, to just take more on my plate, to see how far I could expand my reach. College sports was always my favorite. College basketball was always my favorite, but you learn so much doing more things. And I think that was another thing that I learned just coming up was just the more you say yes to, the more that you throw yourself into this, the more experience you get. That's always the best thing for you. And so it seems to have paid off. I'm really happy with where I'm at. I feel like, even through the times where I don't need to tell you guys that sometimes the long hours, the working holidays, things like that, working weekends, that can really suck. But if you keep the nose to the grindstone, you get great payoff moments. You get to go to cool things. You get to go to playoff NFL games. You get to go to March Madness. You get to go to conference tournaments. And that stuff, that's what makes it all worth it. I was thinking the other night actually about, after Pitt played basketball in the first four Dayton a couple years ago, I pulled an all-nighter writing about that game. And it was so much fun. It was a 9:00 game, but I think I stayed up. Game ended maybe at 11:30. We finished getting out of the press conferences around midnight or 12:30, and I stayed up writing until 7:30 in the morning. And it is an experience that I wouldn't trade for anything. I felt awful the next day, felt awful for the next couple of days, but it was incredible and cemented that I kind of made the right choice. So I guess that's my journey. I feel like it's a little weird because I didn't go to journalism school. I just kind of asked questions. I stuck around. I hung around people who knew what they were doing, and I asked them how to do it. And I feel like that's kind of the best thing that you can do if you want to be a sports journalist, if you want to work in sports media. Just get experience, do things, consume, learn, talk to people, and that's how you can get as far as you might be able to go in this.
The two things that I took from that, by the way, Stephen is awesome at this, and if you are a young aspiring journalist, you can learn an awful lot from what Stephen just said right there. But just for me, the inordinate irony of starting down the path of becoming a journalist because you didn't know what to do with your free time is one of the most hilarious things I can think of.
Yeah.
What do I want to do with my free time? Oh, sacrifice all of it forever and ever. Here's what we'll do with it. No more of that. Taken care of. The second thing is, if I taught you one thing, it was don't go to class, which I really, appreciate. I'm really glad that one stuck.
Yeah.
That was a key lesson in that process.
Yeah, kids, go watch highlights on YouTube or go watch film. Go break down some games.
Go cover an 11 a.m. women's basketball game. Do anything other than go to class.
Yes, that's absolutely what everyone should take away from this. I agree.
Just recently became introduced to, well, actually, this is the first time Steve and I have virtually met, but even through social media, it was relatively recent. Our Steelers show Around the 412 used to be with Noah at All Steelers. Derek Bell came on board. Once Derek left, I was like, who the hell is Stephen Thompson? Like, who's gonna come in here and be as good as Derek was on this show? And Stephen joined, watched the first episode that they did together, was a fan immediately, have been following your work since, was super surprised to learn that you were only 24 years old. Look forward to watching you do whatever you're going to do. Like I said, in the middle of a transition right now as you embark on a new journey. Your Boston Celtics just won the NBA Finals, so it's all good right now in Stephen Thompson's world.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. What the... Everything is
right from the Celtics championship into a weekend at the beach with my friends where we just acted like drunk idiots for a few days, and now I'm hanging out with my dad at the beach. We're gonna go see a Red Sox game tomorrow night. Life could not be better for Stephen Thompson. I will have to admit.
Noah got married and you went on a honeymoon, basically.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I never thought of it that way.
The summer of Stephen Thompson continues. Stephen, tell the people where they could find you.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Steven, my first name E, and then Tom, the first 4 letters of my last name. I know Smitty had a hard time finding it the first time, but Steven E. Tom on Twitter. I'll have updates on what I'm doing next. You'll see me around. I'll still be in Pittsburgh, still be in sports media. So stay tuned, and I'll see you guys around later.
There you go. Nice tease there. Alan, tell the people where they can find you.
At Saunders_PGH, not at the beach. This week, I will be later this offseason. And SteelersNow.com at PGA Steelers Now. Big article at SteelersNow.com. I am breaking down Kevin Colbert's last 3 draft classes as Steelers general manager with like a boatload of data, but it's only for Steelers Now Plus subscribers. Get that Allen 10 promo code, get 10% off. I don't know. It still works. Nope. Just don't tell the bosses. Just use it.
I don't know. I don't even know if I want to read that. I mean, listen, you're great at what you do. I love reading the stuff, but
I will say this. I went into this thinking I would come to a different conclusion than I did. So there you go. Okay. How about that for
Wow. Yeah, I was gonna say.
There you go.
I don't have anything right now that I could possibly tease on here. So like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, hit us in the comments with any questions for a future episode, thoughts about anything that we talked about on here. If you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and subscribe over there. Follow us on TikTok if you're on TikTok, 90-second clips of the show. So what you're watching right now will be in TikTok form later on tonight / tomorrow morning. But other than that, for Alan Saunders, Stephen Thompson, myself, thanks for jumping in. Take another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.